Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, America faced a serious threat. Japan had laid waste to much of the Navy's Pacific Fleet, and its ambitions in the Pacific and the Far East posed a serious threat to world stability. America would have to take the fight to the Japanese mainland, traversing vast expanses in the Pacific. In order to do so, America would not only have to prepare for an invasion of Japan, but would also have to prepare for invasions on the European continent against Hitler's Germany. This would not be an easy task. However, the civilized world depended on its success. Recognizing the need for skilled workers to build advanced bases in active theaters of war, the Navy approved the creation of construction battalions under the capable leadership of Admiral Ben Morrell, the Navy's senior civil engineer corps officer. These officers and enlisted men, many of whom were recruited directly from the construction industry and had little or no military training, would become part of the greatest construction force the world has ever seen. They would be immortalized in an image created by naval draftsman and Seabee Frank Iafredi that is still in use to this very day. The men of these construction battalions, or Seabees, would not only build, but would learn how to defend themselves and fight. By the war's end, they would number over 300,000 officers and men. Their can-do attitude in the face of dangerous conditions would become part of American culture, and they would play a major part in America winning the war. They continued serving and were in Korea at Incheon and throughout the peninsula. They played a major part in Vietnam and are serving our country right up into the present day. Their training and experience have shaped leaders in every field of American life. They are the visionaries who see what others can't see and do it. They are the innovators who recognize the need for improvement and act upon it. Their impact spans generations, and they represent a rich naval tradition that needs to be celebrated. Today, there are places that seek to honor them. The Seabee Museum in Port Hueneme, California is one of them. Great effort has gone into the construction of the museum and the exhibits that are found there. However, much more needs to be done to tell the full Seabee story. Retired Admiral Ben Montoya served with the Seabees several times during his career. He later went on to serve as the head of the Navy's Civil Engineer Corps. He's a firm believer in the potential the museum has in inspiring young people to enter the fields of engineering and construction.
The Seabees have evolved over time. The World War II Seabees were skilled craftsmen, mid-30s, early 40s, whereas today's Seabees are young recruits. Many of them come without the skills but are trained in the Navy, not only in their craft skills but leadership skills. And our museum captures those various phases of a Seabee's life. And I think a young person seeing that will be inspired to want to be like them, whether it's a Civil Engineer Corps officer or the Seabee leader.
Recently, people from around the world attended a gala at the Reagan Presidential Library in California's Simi Valley in support of the Seabee Museum at Port Hueneme. Former Seabee Steve Thomas was instrumental in getting NFL Hall of Famer Dick Butkus involved in the museum's support. That evening, Dick was honored for his ongoing commitment to the museum and the work of the Seabee Historical Foundation.
It's kind of a humbling experience to be honored here tonight. The people do a tremendous job of supporting the Seabees around here. The can-do effort is needed more than anything else nowadays because everybody looks for the easy way out, and everybody wants to be the president, and they don't want to be the laborer to build the buildings and the roads and stuff like that. So it's a humbling thing, but I accept it with deep humility.
Dick was very instrumental. He did a golf tournament for 4 years for us and also was our national spokesperson. He raised over $800,000 for us. He really assisted us immensely. We raised, I think, close to $14 million for us 4 or 5 years, so it was really great. I joined the Seabees in 1967. I became a member of Mobile Construction Battalion 4, Alpha Company, from February during Tet Offensive of '68 until October '68. We did things that couldn't be done. They would tell us, oh, you can't build that airstrip that quick. You can't put that pontoon bridge in that quick. You can't get this done. We got it done. It really helped me in my career later on, getting into car sales. I'm just honored to be part of it.
I did a 20-year run in the Navy. I happened to work for a Caterpillar dealer. Didn't have any Caterpillar dealer to turn to in Vietnam, so we had to fix things and make it work. Across the board, all of the rates in the Seabees, the builders, the electricians, the steel workers, the UT guys, everybody put something extra into their job. The motto says we build, we fight, but in reality, the bulk of what they're doing is nothing to do with combat, but relationship building, nation building, building water wells and schools and hospitals. That's the kind of thing that goes on today just like it was way back then.
The Seabees demonstrated the very best in Vietnam, but often there were costs. On June 10, 1965, Marvin Shields would prove once again that Seabees could fight. On that day, a regiment of Viet Cong attacked Shields' compound. In the engagement, Shields would be wounded, but would continue fighting while providing support for other wounded soldiers and Seabees. In the process, he would be mortally wounded. For these acts of gallantry, Marvin Shields was awarded the Medal of Honor for his courage serving his country as a Seabee. After Vietnam, the Seabees would continue as a force for good, working on construction projects, large and small, throughout the world. However, new threats were to arise. On June 15, 1985, TWA Flight 847, leaving Athens for Rome, was hijacked by terrorists. The hijackers forced the plane to Beirut and demanded fuel once on the ground. When the fuel was refused, the terrorists then forced a young sailor to the front of the plane. Knowing he was an American, the terrorists proceeded to beat and torture him in order to make him scream into a mic for fuel. Despite the brutal beatings, he refused to give in and remained silent. Finally, realizing that they couldn't break him, the terrorists shot him and dumped his body onto the tarmac for the world to see. His last words were a prayer to God for strength. Robert Dean Steedham was awarded the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star for his courage. Like Marvin Shields before him, Robert Steedham died serving his country as a Seabee. Both men have had Navy destroyers named after them, and the USS Steedham still serves today. Seabees continue to offer the ultimate sacrifice in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, as they did in World War II, Korea, and in Vietnam. Right now, they are putting their lives on the line building facilities in the fight against Ebola in Africa. Some of the original Seabees are still with us. Tony Percoco, who later went on to become a teacher, credits his time with the Seabees as a formative time in his life. He served in the Aleutians and helped in rebuilding Nagasaki after the atomic bomb. Since then, he and his wife Vicki have organized reunions of the 43rd NCB.
One day I'm walking on Main Street in my little hometown, and I see this fellow with a sailor suit on. I said, well, what's that on your shoulder? He says, well, that's a Seabee patch. Seabees? What do they do? So he started to explain to me, well, there's construction, there's military training. I said, that's for me. I ended up in Camp Perry, Virginia. And I remember there were signs down there, no dogs or sailors allowed. As an 18-year-old, had no skills whatsoever. I was the gopher. Whenever you needed something, get Percoco. He'll get it for you. But I learned a lot from that. I would say my experiences in the classroom, my experiences being on the Board of Education, there's that feeling of wanting to do well. Perseverance, can-do spirit, that's something that's always been a part of me.
Jerry Halpin, another original Seabee, served in the Pacific in World War II and went on to a successful career as a developer. Jerry developed numerous projects in Virginia and in the D.C. area. He's still active, putting the finishing touches on developments he created in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and in Texas. He's a major supporter of the Seabee Museum, recognizing how the Seabees contributed to his success.
Seabees did a fine job of teaching people how to do things. As a result, the people that came out of the Seabees were very fine people who did a fine job. I, at that time, was not very experienced in construction, but I learned it in the Seabees. I got into a lot of business deals, which turned out to be successful, mainly because I hired former military people who, after that, became my partners, and we developed a lot of properties in the Washington, D.C. area. We grew in a place called Tyson's Corner. We ended up with someplace between 12 and 14 million feet of office space there and in northern Maryland. I think it's important for the young folks to realize there's a value that has been added to the world, really, because of the Seabees' hard work, the good things that we do. I think it's important, particularly to young folks, to have an opportunity of learning how to do construction and what helps build our country and build the world. Technology and education, and if we can present it in a museum where people see it and learn it, it's a big plus for everybody, I think.
The original Seabees continue to impact today's construction industry. Ross Myers, president of American Infrastructure, is the son of a Seabee. He credits his father's can-do attitude as being a major influence on his life and his career in construction. He helped organize major donations on behalf of the museum.
My family's connection is rather strong. My father was a Seabee in World War II, and my wife Beth's father, Tom Wolford, was also a Seabee in World War II. This year we're celebrating our 75th year in business. My grandfather and father ran a dairy farm, and in 1939 they sold 6 cows and bought a dump truck. Shortly after that, World War II broke out. My father enlisted in the Seabees. I still have all the letters my father wrote. Every letter talks about how passionate he was about the Seabees, how he couldn't wait to get back home to start a construction company with my grandfather, who was still milking cows and driving a dump truck. My father's experience in the Seabees had a huge impact on my life and the life of our company. It made it possible for us to grow into one of the largest civil contractors in the Mid-Atlantic. I'm very excited that Caterpillar is a part of this. They're a major supporter of the museum at the national level, and at the local level, Giles and Ransom, Carter Equipment, and Albany Equipment have all been very supportive, which has really helped the museum. There was a recent CEO poll done nationally. The biggest problem we're going to face over the next 10 years is talent acquisition. And I can't think of a more important endeavor than the Seabee Museum, to have interactive displays that get young people excited about the profession of construction.
The impact the Seabees and the Navy's Civil Engineer Corps have had on the American way of life is immeasurable. They continue to shape leaders in the fields of technology and infrastructure. Lowell McAdam, Chairman and CEO of Verizon Communications, is one of them.
I had a terrific and a really varied career while I was in the Civil Engineer Corps. There wasn't a better place to start your career. The training that's associated with the Seabees, the training that's associated with the Civil Engineer Corps that provides the leadership, all of that is based on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. STEM is at the heart of what the Seabees are. Well, I can tell you, being a technology company, there is a woeful need for science, technology, engineering, and math across all of our industries in the United States right now. We have really fallen behind other parts of the world. And I think if we can build this museum out, we can show visitors the depth and breadth of what the Seabees do, and it'll inspire them even more to serve their country and to learn these kind of skills, which will serve them very well as they go through life. So it's a tremendous feeder pool for the large construction companies that we see around the country. One of the things that we say in Verizon is we always run to a crisis, and that's exactly where the Seabees are. They're always the first on the scene, like Africa, where we go in and create these temporary hospitals, these field hospitals for treating Ebola and other emergencies around the world. They're always the first on the scene, representing the best of America.
The museum itself is a building at this stage. It's a building that is full of artifacts, signs, posters that tell a story. That isn't enough. Today's young people are used to technology. They want to be able to manipulate technology and find out for themselves what it is that they are looking at. We want our museum to be that. We want it to be inspirational. We want it to be storytelling, therefore interactive. And that takes resources to make that happen. And that's what this phase of the museum is about. Not only do we emphasize skills, but we want to inspire young people to learn about the sciences and technology and how they apply in the military. We need them, you need them, and this is an opportunity to inspire them. No better place than the Seabees and the Civil Engineer Corps to make that connection.